Hello, my name is Keiko Wilkins, and today I'm going to be presenting on behalf of myself and Angelique, Rosa, Marín. I am a first-year PhD student at University of Hawaii, and she is a master's student at FAMU. And today I'm going to be talking to you about STEM experiences abroad and how these kind of shape graduate students to be competent professionals, with evidence provided from the Limnology and Oceanography Research Exchange Program. And so, as we know, international research collaborations are extremely important. And so the geosciences extend beyond country boundaries, which requires research to also expand beyond these boundaries. With the expansion of virtual meeting platforms, research collaborations are even more accessible. This includes both the initiation of these types of collaborations, but also the continuation of these collaborations are even more possible. Also, with the expansion of these virtual meeting platforms, it allows for information to be spread broadly across continents. So it's able to be shared quickly with diverse audiences and broader audiences now than ever before. And research has shown that collaborative papers are most often cited than single authored papers, and internationally collaborative papers are more often cited than single country papers. And so these types of experiences really help a researcher to gain scientific visibility within the scientific community, but also within the general public. However, there are very few programs that exist which allow graduate students to be involved in these types of collaborations at both the master's level and also the PhD level. You'll see some programs that allow PhD students to be involved, but it's very rare to have both PhD and master's students involved in these types of programs. So the Association for the Sciences of Limnology and Oceanography created this NSF-funded program, the Limnology and Oceanography Research Exchange, or LOREX. And this program, since its initiation in 2018, has allowed for about 30 US-based graduate students to travel to 4 different countries across the globe. And the overall goal of this program was to train students to be successful international collaborators. And so students apply for this. They have to initiate the collaboration. They're given a list of potential collaborators that they have to contact and kind of pitch a project idea or work with this collaborator to design a project. And then they have to once they have completed a research project together, research proposal together, they have to submit this to ASLO for review. And so LOREX, before the exchange, provides its students with professional development training, which includes things such as webinars and overall just resources on how to prepare for the exchange. Because in a lot of cases, these graduate students haven't traveled to these locations, and also they've never had the experience to be involved in this type of research collaboration. And so the exchange is a 4 to 8 week research experience at the host institutions. The students actually determine the length of their program depending on overall their project complexity and how long they think it's going to take. And then after they return from the exchange, the students are provided with more resources and opportunities to stay involved after the collaboration and get involved in new collaborations. And so this figure to the right just kind of shows the host institutions that existed in 2018 across those 4 different countries. And this list has since been expanded since 2018. And so this is for the very first cohort of students. There has since been a second cohort of students that are awaiting travel, hopefully next year when travel restrictions are eased. And so what we did is there were a series of surveys, focus groups, and interviews for the students. And so the surveys and focus groups were sent out to cohort 1, and the surveys were conducted before and after the exchange, as well as the focus groups. And the interviews were conducted with both cohort 1 after their exchange and then cohort 2 before their exchange. And the overall goal was to gain a better understanding of what the LOREX program outcomes really were. And so I am going to be talking about today kind of some of the benefits and overall some of the challenges that we saw come out of this type of program. It's kind of the first of its kind. So there wasn't like a template to go off of. So I just want to talk through like what we found. So the first benefit that we saw was the overall formation of connections and networking. And this occurred through a variety of different forms, or I guess a variety of different networks. So let's say we have our graduate student here in the center, and of course they bring their own knowledge, their own expertise to the table. But when they become a part of the LOREX cohort, we saw that they were able to form connections because of things such as they had a common research area. Maybe they had a common professional or personal connection to either people within their own cohort or maybe to the LOREX host. And then also the students were able to connect by being sent to the same host institution at the same time, living together and often helping each other with their projects. Now, when we scale up and we look at the host institution, again, students were able to form networks through common research area, personal and professional connections, but also they were able to form connections through their collaborator, the laboratory, or sometimes just their entire department was really there to support them come together and make this a successful international research exchange. We also had students connecting within the ASLO community. So students were highly encouraged to give conference presentations at the ASLO meetings, as well as, of course, outside of ASLO. Students also were able to be involved in ASLO webinars. And also the ASLO gave students the unique opportunity to write blogs during their exchange, before their exchange, and even after their exchange to overall just talk about their experience, to post pictures, and just like provide advice to students who are either interested in applying for the LOREX program or just generally interested in being involved in international research collaborations. And so within the greater scientific community, LOREX really benefited students by, as I said, the LOREX blogs are publicly available. So anybody can go onto the LOREX website and see what students were up to. In addition, students were able to do social media takeovers. So essentially a student controlled the ASLO Instagram account for up to as long as a week, I think. And they were able to post live videos, pictures of their experiment as it was happening. Or some students chose to do this after they returned. We had students that were providing just general advice or just talking about how their experience was in these various countries. And of course, students were publishing and also presenting on the findings from their research experiences. And so another one of the benefits that we saw was overall the shifting of perspective of these students. And this shift in perspective took a variety of different forms. So the first one being a shift in perspective in science and research. So students commented that they felt like they were being treated as peers rather than graduate students. And these experiences kind of opened their eyes up to like what it actually meant to be a researcher and kind of what it would mean for them to be a researcher in the future. In addition, students gained perspectives about being a minority and a woman in science. They said across the board that students felt more acceptance than they normally had felt in the US. They felt like they were more accepted, their identities were more accepted, and they felt more almost like a PI on the project rather than just being an assistant, which they often had felt being in their labs. There was also a kind of change in potential career paths for students. So students, their eyes were open to all the possibilities that existed. So students were able to explore what it looks like to be a postdoc at these universities. Students looked at potential PhD options if they were still in their master's program. And it showed students that there were options to pursue this kind of opportunity, like a postdoc or a PhD abroad. They didn't necessarily have to do that in the US, and kind of like what that looked like if they did do it in a different country. It also allowed students to, in some ways, change their research focus. So some students said that their LOREX research actually eliminated potential research options. So they discovered like research areas that they knew they weren't interested in pursuing in the future, while other students said that the LOREX experience kind of opened doors for them and it helped them hone in on potential research projects and collaborations for the future. And another big benefit that we saw was confidence as a researcher. So this comes from the survey data, and there's 14 different research areas that students were surveyed. And the blue is their post-exchange and the green is their pre-exchange. And in these 14 different areas, students actually increased in confidence across all these areas. And so the areas range from things such as managing international research collaborations all the way to writing research proposals, conducting research outside their home country. And in all of these areas, it was found to be statistically significant an increase in their overall confidence as a researcher. And lastly, another huge benefit that we saw was the dissemination of results. It was a rather interesting finding that students tended to use new forms of disseminating results as opposed to the traditional, research papers, conference presentations, and university seminars, which you can see on the right-hand side of the figure is what hosts most commonly used, in addition to social media. However, the participants seem to be more open to non-traditional forms of science communication, such as the use of blogs, the use of social media, or even presentations to the public is how they either have disseminated their information or intended to disseminate in the future. And I just wanted to kind of share some of the cool outputs that we saw. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's two examples of blogs that students had posted from their LOREX experiences. In the middle, we can see an article by Trista McKenzie. They were working at Southern Cross University in Australia, and they recently published their work. And you can see on the right-hand side, Sarah Burnett shared her experiences on Gleon's website. And so, of course, with any new program, it is not without its challenges. So I just wanted to highlight two of the most important challenges I would say that were faced and kind of to consider in the future. So we have logistical challenges. So students said that they had some trouble in terms of visas and permits. So it was difficult to figure out what visas you needed, what sort of permits you needed for the actual experiment. And they would have liked more help and resources with that when traveling to their new country. Also, shipping requirements. There's very different shipping requirements to ship things to their specific countries, but then also shipping it back to the US. So more information regarding that would have been amazing. And to kind of help with this, a bunch of LOREX Cohort 1 students created this handbook for international research collaborations. It is not LOREX specific. It's meant for anybody sort of participating in international research collaborations to use as a guide to help them be successful in these collaborations. It is a living handbook on the ASLO website, so we hope that it will continue to be updated as people continue to internationally collaborate with the hopes that it'll provide researchers down the line to be better prepared at these during their international collaborations. And another sort of challenge that students talked about was cultural awareness. So a lot of students talked about the overall just cultural shock from being in these new places. Their cultural expectations seem to be different than their actual experiences, whether that was good or bad experiences. And we think it's really important to highlight this and to just acknowledge it with your students. In conclusion, when given these training and resources to be successful, students will create their own journey and make it what they want to make it. And graduate students are kind of essential to these collaborations. A lot of these collaborations would not happen without the student. And these experiences enhance a grad student's ability to be a competent professional after graduating. They provide opportunities not traditional to graduate students and experiences not normal but needed post-graduation. And we hope that more programs like LOREX will be created. They extend current programs to allow undergraduates and non-US based graduate students to be able to participate and allow graduate students to be involved in international collaborations within your labs. Thank you for your time. And with that, I would just like to acknowledge everybody that helped make this presentation possible, as well as people that helped make LOREX possible in general. Thank you.